Ladies and gentlemen, people of all gender expressions, thank you for checking out the North Bank Media Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Strevens. Joining me on the show this afternoon was Jill Hintz, Chief Operating Officer of Luxe Du Jour and Luxe Bag Rental. So you could see this as somewhat of a follow-up or a companion episode to our previous conversation with Tammy Phan, who was the CEO and founder of Luxe Du Jour. And she brought Jill in about a year ago to really start with that scaling up effort to really expand that business of hers. So it's really great to speak with two people who work within the same business, who can offer different perspectives and different personalities and different viewpoints on essentially the same subject. So Luxe Du Jour is a place. It's an online marketplace where folks can buy, sell, consign, rent, and now have serviced their luxury designer handbags. These are a commodity that appreciate in value. They're very highly sought after, and there's a big niche there, and their 60,000 follower Instagram account would attest to that, no doubt. So, whereas Tammy may be something of a big picture, a visionary with the company, Jill comes in and she's helping build the team. She's finding the right people to put in the right roles. She's overseeing and getting her hands on all aspects of the company. And I was really pleased to get to speak with her about, how do you go about hiring the right person for a role? How much introspection does a team leader and a manager have to do? And what do we expect of the people that we hire, and how do we help them grow? How do we motivate them? And all those sorts of things that I think what this podcast wants to dig in on is personality and getting people on that track where they themselves can grow into their best selves, whether it's as an employee or as an entrepreneur. If you find business interesting, if you find personality interesting, how you can motivate yourself, how you can motivate your team, I think there's some great bites in this episode for really anybody in the working world. So without too much more blabbing on my part, really enjoyed this one, sort of a two, the second part of a double header, let's say, my conversation with Luxe Du Jour Chief Operating Officer, Jill Hintz. Well, Jill Hintz, thank you for coming on the show. I just spoke with your boss or your partner, Tammy, so this is good to now get the second half of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to meet you and to be here.
Designer bags, huh?
Mm-hmm.
This is a world that is foreign to me, but I learned a lot in an hour from Tammy. So I guess what I am curious about is what I love is the different sort of streams of revenue you guys have.
Yeah.
At Luxe Du Jour, but I guess you're specifically more in the rental side of things. Is that right?
Yeah, I touch every aspect of the business, but rental is kind of my baby. Yeah.
Right on. Well, to me, it's cool. I mean, it could be bags, it could be watches, it could be anything, but this is the way the economy is going in some ways, where ownership, for better or for worse, is less and less in some ways, and people can have experiences without ownership.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really found that our clients were looking for a way to enjoy luxury without making that huge leap, because we do have a lot of bags that depreciate in value as well over time. I'm sure Tammy kind of introduced you to the assets that handbags are, can be. And so we really wanted to make it accessible to everybody.
That's interesting though, because in the past, luxury and owning these things, it was a status symbol. It was to show that you had a certain, and now people can sort of pretend, or they can present themselves as like, there's no conflict there, but it's interesting, right? Like now everybody, but in some way, does that not devalue the bags in some way, that if you can rent them now?
Right. So I think in a way it's more about creating an experience.
Sure.
For instance, if you purchase a Rolex, you're not buying it to wear a watch.
Right.
You're buying it because of, or renting it or whatnot to have the experience of being a Rolex owner. Mm-hmm. For luxury and rentals, and the pre-loved market in itself, it's just creating a more kind of universal way that people can enjoy something that they've had a passion about their entire life, or maybe it's a new passion.
What about luxury men's fanny packs?
Yeah.
Is that a thing? And can I rent one if I want to appear
Absolutely.
cool?
Yeah. We do have male clients who enjoy our services and also purchase from us on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. There are brands that do have men's lines as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, I did an interview with a guy and he had a fanny pack, and I thought, well, and he was wearing it in the the tradition.
Across.
Yeah, across. I'm
That's
like,
in
well,
style right now.
it's a cool look. I don't know what's in there. I'm not sure I want to know, but well, let's say I am a male and my wife, my partner is interested. Is there a way can you gift a rental? Can you something like that?
Yeah, so we have gift cards, which make an awesome gift. In terms of, maybe it would be a great idea for Valentine's Day, for instance, to, rent your wife a bag to use for the weekend, or,
Okay.
just to spice it up a little bit, right?
Yeah. Well, you start with the bag, and who knows where it goes from there.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's really it's a neat idea. I think it had never occurred to me that handbags were the commodity that they are, but they are a status symbol, and they are something that appreciates in value too. It sounds like.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the rental, we're actually the new in Canada. So there's not really a rental service here yet, except for us. But it's actually quite popular in the States. So something that we were modeling is not copying, but using their models and bringing that here. And then hopefully eventually we can expand into the States as well.
Well, I hope it works. Like Tammy talked about her plans for expansion, and she's got some pretty lofty goals as far as one day going public and all that. But I guess
Absolutely.
That's what it would require, would be to expand that market and get that big money. I hope it happens for you guys, because I think you've hit on something, and I think you're doing it right from what I've heard.
Yeah, we base a lot of our moves on what our clients want,
right.
Which is, I think, the best way that you can do business, especially in this time, is you have to have a market for it.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, you must have it's a wide swath of demographics that you cover, as depending on what service we're talking about. But how are you engaging with those clients and building that kind of lifetime value?
Yeah, so it depends on the client and the demographic as well. But social media is huge. It's such a huge tool that doesn't cost anything. So I always recommend, new business owners get on social media, because it's data as well. We do polls on Instagram to find out what bags our clients actually want to rent, and then we bring those bags in. And that's, it's a survey at the end of the day, right? So social media is huge, and we, as the companies grow, so does our social media, and they reach out all hours of the day with comments or suggestions or appreciation.
And you have to, I mean, that's it, right? Is like, you're building a client base, you're building an audience, you're building like a tribe, an army, whatever, community.
Yeah.
And then you can leverage that at the end of the day. It's like 60,000 people you guys have on Instagram. Was that about that?
Yeah, for Luxe Du Jour. Yeah.
That's incredible. That kind of messaging, that kind of distribution.
Yeah. Like where else would you have 60,000 people in one room to talk about what you want to talk about? Right?
Exactly. Maybe a football game in the United States or something, but 60,000 people, of the right people, right? The people that you want.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I heard that you were originally hired as an EA and then shot through the ranks to be the COO of Luxe. That's a cool story.
Yeah. So I started as actually Tammy's executive assistant. And then pretty quickly I moved up, but it was always propelled as to what the company needed.
Okay.
So if they needed me in a product specialist position, then that's where I was going. And then eventually they needed me here. And so, yeah, it was pretty exciting, and it's been a whirlwind of a year.
Right. Oh, I bet. So when did you start with the company?
I started in January, late January.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty year.
Okay, pretty recently.
Yeah.
What were you looking for in a job at that time? That obviously not this necessarily.
Yeah. So I was really inspired by the people that I was going to be working with. I had come from a position where I loved my superiors, and I really wanted to replicate that in my next position.
Gotcha.
And so I was looking for somebody who could not only be my boss, but also a mentor within business.
Nice.
And so when I interviewed with Tammy, I was honestly I really just wanted to get my foot in the company, regardless of where that position was.
Gotcha.
And if I was, qualified or overqualified or however it may have been, I just really I loved what Tammy was doing, and I really wanted to learn from her.
Right. Yes, because when we were talking a bit, she made, like, she's big picture CEO essentially, like it's got the highest of the high level in the company. But that person sometimes gets bogged down in the day to day and in the, like I worked at a marketing agency once, and the CEO was like worried about what credit card the client was using to pay for ads. It's like, this cannot be your problem.
Right.
Right. Like, so you fill an important role, almost an equally important role, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely involved in the day-to-day. I mean, we are, being the size of company that we are, everybody has their hands in a little bit of everything.
Right.
Just because we're even just the location, like our offices are right beside each other, so we don't necessarily have to be on our own when we're solving problems.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm definitely more on the processes side and the hands-on business side. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so does that appeal to you? I guess at this time it's where you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, but you don't envy Tammy having to make those big decisions, or you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like you're in a sweet spot in some ways there?
Yeah. I mean, because we are such a collaborative environment, I also like to surround myself with people who are smarter than me. So people who are maybe report to me are still, I think, smarter than me in some areas. And so we are very much a collaborative team, and we value everybody's expertise. And so when we're in meetings and we're pitching ideas, that's coming from our executive assistants and our CEO. There's no position where they don't get a say. Yeah.
Right. And that's interesting, because there's an art to building a team, right? Like, you want to put people in positions to succeed, and you do want to look at that person and be like, I think you have something that I don't. And that's why you're here, right?
Yeah. Why would I want to hire another me? I could just do it.
True. Why would I want to? Yeah. I don't want two of myself in this place.
No way.
Yeah. I'm enough.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have never really been involved in a hiring. Well, I ran a job interview once, which I don't know why they made me do it, but hiring is a lot of things, right? And Tammy basically mentioned that you guys had some bad hires over the years, or over the year. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm. It's tough. I mean, with being not technically, but technically a startup, because we have really grown within the last year significantly. There's a lot of learning curves, and there's also a lot of growth, and the company changes and the needs of the company change from the start to the end. So maybe at that time, that person was what the company needed, but then by the time we are now a year later, we've made some adjustments, and maybe, the fast-paced startup lifestyle is not for everybody.
Right.
It's a tough game, and you have to be a certain kind of person to really see the end through all of it. Mm-hmm.
So what were you finding then? That people wanted to just come in, they wanted security, they wanted a kind of a low intensity position where they could just collect a paycheck kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think the adaptability that you need within this job is something that a lot of people, I guess they would see that as a lack of security, because your job, I mean, if you look at my position, it's changed significantly month to month, even, going from an EA to now where I am.
Right.
And so that took a lot of me not flying by the seat of my pants, but feeling that way, right? Like, there was always a plan, but it takes a certain kind of person to not know what they're doing the next day. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You got to be able to just, what is it?
Roll with the punches.
Roll with the punches and be willing to take the risk or the leap of faith that something's going to happen and we don't know what it is, but.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. That was part of what I saw when I was contracting for this marketing agency as video producer, and just seeing how, I mean, this is one man's crazy vision, essentially. In some ways, it's the same with Tammy. And then to ask people to buy in, but say, well, I don't know really what's going to happen, but I need you to buy in, right?
It's a tough sell.
It's a tough sell, but the payoff is huge, right? Because it's,
of course,
if it pays off.
Yeah. All the good ideas are the crazy ones, right? You just have to find the right person to hitch your wagon to.
That's right. So you feel you've done that yourself?
Oh yeah, I admire so many things about Tammy and actually everybody that I work with. I like to think of myself as almost like a sponge, I'm just taking what I can from every single person and making myself better for them as well.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way to look at it. So, and you're in a leadership position too, right? You'd say, obviously. What is there kind of like certain things that you hammer on these people to just stay engaged with them, or what is it that, because leadership's a tough one, right? And that was a bad question, but I guess leadership's tough and everybody has a style, but I think leading by example maybe is a move.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a difference between inspiration and motivation, right? Inspiration is something that your leaders can give you. Motivation has to come from you. And so I think that installing that within my team, that they have to come to work motivated, but it's my job to inspire them to continue, that is something that I strive for every day. In terms of the team itself, I think one of the things I really, really try to make sure is that everybody feels valued. Okay. Every single person with this company is crucial to the success of the company overall. And I want them to feel that on a day-to-day basis, and not just me telling them, you're valued today. It's the culture. It's when they come to work, they feel like their voice is heard and that they can be successful.
Right. That they're contributing to this thing that's bigger than them, and that they're getting something out of it.
Yes.
That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, you touched on something there, inspiration versus motivation. What motivates them? Maybe that's the difference when you keep saying like a certain kind of person to work at this place. They have to have that like intrinsic motivation, like it's got to come.
It has to. Yeah. Right. You have to have that in you. And there's different players, if some people might not want to be an owner or a leader of a company. They're happy coming to work and being, given a to-do list, and that's how they feel fulfilled. Right. And they get fulfillment elsewhere. But when we are a smaller company and we're setting the ground level for these people who will eventually, hopefully, also be in leadership positions as we continue to grow, we have to really look at that, and they have to be, internally motivated to grow within the company and to show up every day as their best self.
Right, which is so how do you find these kind of people in the hiring process? Because I mean, it is a special or certain kind of person who's going to say that that's what they are and then actually be that.
Actually, I got some really great advice about this recently, and it's helped, well, not too recently, I guess, because we've been hiring, but it's been, so how I do it is you visualize the perfect person in your head, what they, how they think, what their morning routine looks like, how you want them to present themselves down to a T. And then when you're hiring, that person will show up for you. It's almost like you say, for instance, you are looking at buying a yellow car, and now all of a sudden you're seeing 10,000 yellow cars a day, and you had never seen a yellow car before. You find what you're looking for if you know what to look for.
That's true. I think. I don't know what it makes sense to me, because there is, it sounds crazy to say, but not really, is that when you put something out into the universe, like that, I've heard it called manifesting or whatever.
Right.
That is very real, and it's scary in some ways because it's a very powerful force that you can tap into, and people might say this is like some woo-woo shit, but that's not the case. I think, I don't know. I don't really know. I'm not a philosopher, but maybe you could tell me what you think.
I think there's also a bit of, if you weren't looking for it, maybe you just didn't see it. Maybe that person had it, and because you didn't recognize that, I want this person to, for instance, I don't know, if I ask how you organize your day, and they say I'm a calendar person, or I write it in a journal, and if I'm looking for a calendar person, if they say I'm a calendar person, then all of a sudden you're like, check,
Interesting.
But if I hadn't thought of that prior, maybe I would just take it and say, whatever, however you do it is fine.
I think maybe that's it, is that you're looking deeper, like you're tapping into things that are, this is like, the universe won't give you exactly what you need, but it'll in some ways make these things
appear to you.
Yes, exactly. But they could have been appearing all along.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there were always 10,000 yellow cars out there.
Right.
It's just, you see them now.
You see them now. What, when you brought that up, a calendar person versus a journal person, what's that all about?
Oh, I'm such a nerd when it comes to organizing my day. But some people write their days down on a piece of paper, and some people put them in their calendars, and it's just a bit of it's a good tell on where they are with organization. Okay. Yeah, it's a question I like to ask, actually, because I'm I'm a type of person who I need my calendar with me at all times so that I know exactly what my day looks like.
Okay.
And I can't be reliant on a book for that.
Interesting.
But some, it's just a personality difference, right?
Okay. Well, I use both. That's got me thinking like, but
Really?
for me, the journal is more the past. Like I write about the past.
Oh,
Like I write about the day as it happened.
oh, okay. Well, that's different. Yeah, that's
Right.
more of I guess when I say journal, I mean like a day timer. Is
Gotcha.
that an old phrase?
No, I don't. I mean, the journal's whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
But as long as you're doing it, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
there, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Was talking to somebody who said that they don't actually keep track of their day at all. And they just, fly by whatever the day is. And I said, how, how did that work for you?
What did they say? How does that work for them?
They said it just works out. They'll get a text that their doctor's appointment is tomorrow at 3, and that's okay with them.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, that might work for some folks.
Yeah.
And fine. Like you can't sit here and judge people's processes, I guess.
Of course not. Yeah.
Who would do that? Not me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I found is that journaling from the perspective of what I did yesterday has really helped improve my life going forward because I can read my life like a story. Imagine reading a year of your life and just looking at all the places you went wrong or went right.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And do you journal based off of like what you did that day or how you felt about it, or what point of view do you journal from?
Yeah, it's definitely what I did. I think that's the structure, but then it is how I was feeling because some days you're not doing much, right? It's like,
right.
So then how was I thinking? What was I worried about? What was I proud of or whatever? So it's a neat test to sort of, you've got a page. How do you balance what was important that day?
Exactly. And writing it down makes it feel more tangible.
Yes.
And less important a little bit,
Definitely that. You're forced to reckon with it like, yes, this happened. Yes, I did this and everybody saw and I'm embarrassed or whatever. But then I get it out there. I admit it to the universe and it's over in some ways.
There. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No. So do you do any sort of journaling then as far as that?
Yeah. Yeah. I journal on a nightly basis.
Nice.
But I keep it almost I have a calendar. It is like a paper calendar, but then by day, there's like a spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put down, what I did that day, the highlights, the lowlights. I try to focus, what I'm really thankful for and grateful for. That's usually what I start with. A list of 10 things that I'm grateful for. And they always change. It could be anything. I think there was a time when I had a rough day and I said the pen that I'm writing with, and it could be anything because it was a good pen,
right. Hey,
I couldn't think of 10 things that day.
10 things to be grateful for is a lot though, I think.
Yeah. But if you really think, there's lots to be grateful for, electricity, anything, right?
Right. Grateful that I live when I do and where I do and not anywhere else at any other time.
Yeah. Yeah. It just really helps put things into perspective. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's something I could maybe do more of personally, but so you're working from a baseline of gratitude, like you're just happy to be here, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like to start my journaling that way because it minimizes the problems. Because if I put down what I'm grateful for, say, I'm grateful for my family and my dogs, and then it really tells me what's important in my day and the small stuff becomes less important.
Absolutely. And the stuff that's not productive or the stuff that is not helping you, you can just see it as that. It's like, it's not how much of this sort of lifestyle stuff, like, cause journaling, gratitude, all that thing, there's exercise. You could look at all that sort of self-care stuff. How much of that do you try and instill in the employees or build a culture of healthy workers?
A lot.
Yeah.
We're trialing different things. Like we are talking about, maybe doing a 4-day work week where we work longer hours and they have Fridays off, and we really try to get their opinions on things. So we do polls or we also did this really great exercise where you had 5 categories. It was money, your position itself, free time. I can't remember the other ones, but there was 5 categories. And then everybody got a pie chart and they had to individually fill out the pie chart as to which category was most important to them. And so we keep that, and we really try and instill that. So say if somebody, maybe salary is the least important thing to them, but they want free time, then that employee on a really good, say they hit their targets that week or that month, they get an extra day off paid.
Right.
So, and we really try to cater it to that specific employee, because everybody's different. Some people might be money driven. Some people might be, and that's perfectly fine. But some people may not see any value in a bonus, but they want an extra week's vacation.
Right. Right. They want the time over the money.
Yeah. Exactly. And you don't know until you ask.
Right. So all these sort of corporate, I guess, rules and regulations that are in place over there, was that something that you helped write, or was that was kind of in place?
Yeah. So we had 2 remote employees and then myself. So for a while there, it was just Tammy and myself in the office. And so over the year, we built our team from that to now, I think there's about 10 of us, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah.
14, I heard.
Oh, well, maybe there are 14.
Oh, are there?
Speaking of, with the other locations. And,
for sure.
Yeah.
So then I guess my question, so you really helped build this company from teeny tiny to kind of the next step then. Yeah,
in terms of the company internal size. So Tammy had run this company on her own, because Luxe Du Jour is 6.5. And so she ran it on her own until about a year and a half ago.
Oh, okay.
So from that point, then she started hiring, and then we grew quite significantly in the last year.
Okay. Yeah, she mentioned it was basically she was running it out of her basement, as and she called it a lifestyle business. It was just running to support her. And then, then she went to this sort of growth and scaling perspective.
Absolutely.
Right. So were you then the first step in that direction of scaling, or an early step,
I
guess?
There were 2 people that were hired in marketing, and then myself.
Okay.
And the marketing people worked remotely, and then, and then myself. I was the first one who was in office.
So that's big. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you the executive assistant before you became the COO?
Gosh. Well, I moved into a product specialist position pretty quickly.
Right.
Probably within the first month, 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then from there, started it was very organic. So we ended up hiring a product specialist. So then I was now running managing the product specialist, and then, switching my job description a little bit. And then as we grew and more people joined our team, my job just became kind of, I hate to use the word higher than them, but it was, they reported to me. And so it was very, very gradual.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with this position of power? Had you really had that before?
I have run teams before, but I don't really see it that way.
Well,
because at the end of the day, I need them just as much as they need me.
Right.
My success depends on theirs, and theirs depends on mine.
Sure.
So if I'm from the top down approach, it would never work.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yet if the team failed, it's your fault, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I do need them, and I need them to work to the best of their ability and to hit our targets, and that's
I'm curious about luxury handbags as far as do you feel like you're creating or providing some greater good to the world in this company? And some, I know sustainability is a big part of it, but what is it? What's kind of that rewarding thing that you see from the customer end of it?
Yeah. So from say specifically for Luxe Bag Rental, one of the things that we've noticed a lot is that our clients will send us photos of them, say on their wedding day, with one of our bags, feeling, like it just added that special touch to their reception dress, or that, somebody had a first day on the job and the bag gave them almost like a confidence to walk into that law firm and start their first day as a lawyer. So people put their value into these things, and it ends up being a little bit of a confidence boost, which I think we all need, especially in this time.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff, because the handbag is a status symbol, right? Like it says something about somebody, but I'm not sure what it is.
Right. It could be anything from, it depends what you perceive it of. It could be that you are a fashionable person
Sure.
and you put a lot of, you love to dress up and feel good and present yourself a certain way. Or if you see it as a monetary value, then you can see it that way. And maybe that's where you get your status.
Right. Now, is there any value in those? Do you post testimonials like that or things like reviews on social?
Yeah, we do. And it's one of my favorite parts is when a client messages us and tells us how they loved the rental and that, it was their first step into the luxury world. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to actually put a face to the bag, basically.
A face to the bag.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why this business is kind of fascinating to me, because you're really leveraging the power of social media.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge audience, there's a market there. You just have to tap into it.
Absolutely. And I think it has a lot to do. Marketing is all about emotion.
Yeah.
And you have to create an emotion around what you're selling. We're not just selling bags.
No, you're selling a lifestyle, you're selling a feeling, right? In some ways.
Exactly. Yep. Oh,
everybody's going to see you and you're going to be.
Yeah. Well, because if we were just selling bags, why wouldn't they just go to, anywhere and buy a $30 bag, order it off Amazon, right?
Right. There's people that buy these bags to invest. Hey, like they just buy them and hold on to them.
Yep. Yeah.
That's wild.
They appreciate in value. So most of them, there's some that, say for instance, Chanel had 3 now price increases this year. And so somebody who bought a bag a year ago, their bag is now, upwards of 20% more valuable.
Maybe I should buy one.
I know.
And my girlfriend will see it and say, "What's that?" It's, "Don't touch that. That's not yours."
Don't touch it. Yeah.
No, you can't take that. But so does the value, this is something I don't understand economically, is like certain commodities appreciate in value.
Yeah.
But why?
I think a lot of it has to do with the scarcity of the product. Okay. So for instance, Hermes, they have a general rule where you can only purchase so many handbags from them per year. And you have to almost build up your Hermes credit until you can purchase the highest end bags, the Birkins and the Kellys.
Okay.
And so if you're buying new, by the time you buy a Birkin, you've probably already spent close to $30,000, $40,000 on other products before you're even offered this bag. And so offered it, and you still have to pay for it. It's not given.
Yeah, right. Yeah. We would love for you to come buy this bag.
Yeah. And so for somebody, because you have to do all of that, buying it pre-loved is not only less expensive, even if it's appreciated in value because of the the whole process you have to go through.
That's neat. So the value is set by the manufacturer, essentially. Yep.
Oh yeah. And they can decide, because a lot of the bags are kind of a seasonal thing. They only come out for one season. So if that's the case, then you can't get that bag again unless you buy it pre-loved.
High fashion is never something I've thought about at all until like today. Yeah. But I guess, do you know how a label gains that sort of status? Is it just through time, or like, is that from a bygone era, like where those designers were still alive?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely not rare now. You look at, say, Supreme as a brand.
Yeah, true.
They can put that logo on anything and it increases in value significantly. I think a lot of it has to do with that, the brand itself and that stamp.
Right.
In terms of how they get there, I think it's a multitude of things. You can't really pinpoint it down to just one person or one thing. Yeah, it's pretty impressive how these brands build themselves up.
Yeah, and like that's over a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't just become.
Most of them do have a history.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny to me because there's this whole economy now of, like we're saying, renting or sort of having an experience without ownership.
Yeah.
And you wonder how these legacy brands, these long-serving brands, are going to adjust, or maybe they don't have to because they still have that clientele who. you know.
Yeah, and I guess that's something that they'll have to figure out, right?
Not your problem.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're trying to create, this circular fashion and really reusing what's already out there in the world instead of producing new. And so for them to kind of keep up that's on them.
That's on them. I remember seeing, I think it was Levi's, like a lot of water and resources goes into making a pair of jeans, apparently.
Yeah, a lot.
I don't know, something about Levi's, but I don't know. Like at the same time, that corporate sustainability is kind of a gimmick. I think it's just to advance their brand,
right,
in some ways. But I know that you guys at Luxe are, sustainability is part of what you're doing, right?
Yeah, with reusing the bags that we have are already out in the market, it definitely prevents the new products being built, because bags are built.
Right.
Yeah.
Are these super high fashion, like high value handbags, are they still produced in China, in third world countries, or are they actually in Europe more?
They're in Europe. Some of them are in the States. They have actual artisans who hand stitch these bags.
Okay.
And it takes 10, 15 years to become an artisan for Hermes, for instance. And you can tell actually which artisan created the bags based on the location and the codes that are given for them. So they're very specific in it. Yeah, it's somebody's career.
Do you have one of these bags with you right now?
I don't.
Oh, that's okay.
No.
Tammy had a ton behind her, and I should have asked her just to because yes, here is a man on a podcast asking questions about purses, but it's high quality craftsmanship. Like there's a reason that these things are coveted, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So somebody from your PR side of things, Chantel, reached out to me, and she presented that I should interview the both of you separately.
Right.
Which is cool. I've never really done that before. I guess I am curious about building and hiring and managing a team, and why does that appeal to you as a person?
That's a good question. I think it's very rewarding providing somebody with a job, and it's also crucial to the success of the business. Who we hire is who runs the company,
right?
So I really enjoy kind of the art of that, and I really love meeting new people and feeling out what positions need what type of person is really interesting to me.
So that's the interesting thing is when you get to that higher level, you have to really be a people, like someone that can read people.
Yeah.
You know? But were you always that? Like, did that always appeal to you, or is that like an evolution of your career?
I think people have always appealed to me. I really like learning why people do what they do and how they do it. In terms of hiring people, it's not fairly new to me because I have been in management positions before.
Okay.
But really kind of digging in and learning a little bit of the psychology behind it is newer to me.
And as you dig in and learn that psychology, are you more impressed or less impressed by the human being? Is there a lot to gain, or is it simple in some ways?
Yeah. Hiring somebody in a smaller company of about, say 14 people is a lot more crucial than say hiring somebody in a, 100,000 person company, because that person directly impacts the entire company and the culture of the company. If somebody's having a bad day here, we all feel it because we're all here, right? There's no hiding it.
That's interesting. So it becomes more important who you're bringing in, almost.
Absolutely. It's so crucial.
So you almost have to be able to read people. It's like you're going on first dates with people all the time in some ways.
Yeah. And we do have a multi-step hiring process now where that person goes through multiple people, so that we get a good read on them. Because some people, for instance, people actually interview quite differently over Zoom than they would over in person.
Definitely.
Even. So So yeah, so we try and do a little bit of both. Obviously, the first screening is over the phone, and then usually a video call, and then an in-person interview
So
to
you,
really get a good grasp of them.
it's neat. Like I do a bunch of these podcasts over Zoom, but I do some in person, and
Yeah,
some days Zoom is very nice because it's a little less intense, and I think the other
right.
person too is in their comfort zone a bit more.
Really. See, I find in person is more comfortable.
Really?
Yeah, and maybe it's just maybe that's a me thing,
Could
but it's easier for me to kind of relate to that person when I'm in person.
definitely you get a better read on who they are, I
Yeah.
think. But what I found is like I mean, we're so used now to having these Zoom
Yeah.
conversations, but I don't have to make eye contact with you for the entire hour, you know? Like
Right.
I can kind of just chill on that. I don't know, it's maybe there's something for sure there's something lost, but I don't think it's as bad as like some podcasters were saying, "Oh, I never do it over Zoom." It's
Right.
like, well, okay, that's fine, but also it's not as bad as you might think to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it also, I mean, it's efficient also at the end of the day. You know,
For
you're in
sure.
Edmonton, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so us being in Calgary, it would be an entire day trip if we were to do this.
Not worth it, I can tell you.
You
To come sit in
sell
my
yourself too short.
well, thank you, but as far as like because I don't have a studio yet, so we'd be in
Right.
my living room and it'd be weird.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's more to say there, I think. But there is a reason you do the video call and then you run this hiring through different sort of phases, right? Like
Mhm.
you're trying to like put a person at ease, I guess, but also you're trying to get them to display themselves fully.
Absolutely, yeah. And people also act differently when, say, a person from HR is calling them versus the CEO.
Right.
And so it's very important that all those three steps
Mm-hmm.
are combined to create the best interview possible.
Right.
And we definitely all collaborate and talk about how each person's experience with that person was,
Mm.
so that we, say if somebody said, "Oh, they were rude to me," it's never happened, but
Right.
um, but then say Tammy said, "Oh, they were the nicest person I've ever seen."
Right.
There's obviously an issue there.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
They didn't like you. That's the problem.
Right.
They
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's a me problem.
right, right. Or they were sucking up to Tammy because she's the
Yeah.
CEO. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What, so you were introduced to Tammy like through the hiring process? Like you didn't know her before or anything like that?
I knew her a little bit before
Okay.
because my previous boss is Tammy's cousin.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And so I didn't know her personally by any means, but I did know of her. Mhm.
Gotcha. So, I mean, it's always who you know. It helps to know,
Yeah,
helps to know people.
absolutely.
I mean,
Oh, it's 100% who you know.
right?
Mhm.
Like it truly, I mean, we can in a lot of ways teach people the skills they need
Yeah.
if they're willing to learn and if they're not an asshole. That's
Yeah.
kind of,
Willingness to learn is a number one criteria for
hmm,
being successful in a job. If you are not willing to adapt and change what you're doing,
right.
then, you know,
You're
yeah,
not going to grow.
you're not going to grow.
It is hard though to have the humility. Like sometimes the ego gets in the way, right? Like just
Oh, yeah.
the other day I was shooting something and a friend of mine said to me, he's like, you've got a lot to work with, but you don't work with it sometimes. Like, and no one's ever told you that you're fucking up this, and this. I was like, I could have got real mad and kicked him out.
No, but don't you love that? Because
I
how
did.
else would you know?
Yeah. How else would you know? And it
Yeah,
took balls on his part to say that, I think.
100%. I hope he said it nicely,
No,
but
he said it exactly like that. But I mean, different situation, I guess, than a luxury fashion. I mean, it was just two dudes
your
on
buddy,
a
yeah.
film set. Yeah, basically.
But yeah, you have to be open to feedback, because
Right.
I mean, I always look at it as if you're the same if I was the same person I was even a year ago,
Right.
and I was hired for an executive assistant position, why should a company see more value in me if I haven't changed at all
Right.
as an executive assistant, right?
They shouldn't
Yeah, they shouldn't.
because
Why?
you as an asset are not growing. You're not appreciating.
No, I'm exactly. Yeah.
And let's be frank, when we're talking about business, we use the word human resources for a reason. Like it's human capital. It's like, how are you serving the business?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So Yeah, it's tough to teach that humility and willingness to learn, right?
It is. Yeah. I think I'm not really sure what it comes down to, but it's just openness. And if you want to grow, you have to be willing to grow. And I don't think change is easy for anybody. Nobody loves change. But if you, I think it also has to come down to vision as well. If you can see past the hurdle, then you'll be more successful.
That's a great point. If you can't visualize what it would look like, then it's not going to happen for you, or it's going to feel like chaos. Well, where am I going? What am I doing?
Course.
Right?
Yeah, you can't live, and this is kind of the opposite of what everyone tells you, but in business you really can't live in the now. You have to live in 5 years from now. Because if you, especially in leadership positions, like we have tracks of growth for every single one of our employees, and if they can't see where they can be in 1 year and 5 years, then why would they work any harder than they are now?
Right. Why should I care?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the business, I guess that's good, because then you as the business owner operators are investing back in these people, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And you're showing them that. That's interesting. That's probably pretty fundamental to any. I mean, yes, it is cold hard capitalism. We're here making money for sure, but we're trying to give some value back to the laborer, right?
Exactly. And we don't want our employees to be the same person that they were when we hired them.
Right.
That's not the goal. We want them to be promoted and within leadership positions, sooner rather than later. If that's, of course, what fulfills them and they want that. We're not we're not here to put people in management positions that don't want to be.
Well, yeah, that could be a real problem.
Yeah, it's not good for anybody.
What is that you look for in a person who could be a manager? Like, what do you see? Because you probably know it right away, right?
Yeah, I think it is that vision, that ability to buy in. Because when we talk about our plans for the company, some of them are pretty far-fetched, and they, if
good,
right, like they're exorbitant, and for somebody to buy into that, they have to have that mentality.
Right.
Otherwise they're sitting there like, oh, we're not going to get there. But if you look at where Tammy started, we have achieved everything she wanted to so far. Right. So, the track record speaks for itself.
That's pretty crazy when it's like we have big vision, but also we look where we are now.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at the growth. What is it that drives Tammy, do you think? I mean, I have an idea talking to her, but maybe.
What's your idea?
Well, I mean, the way she told it was like she grew up in a sort of setting where there was not a huge amount of like maybe positive reinforcement, and it was a lot of you need to be better, you need to be great, you need to be like your cousins, you need to.
Yeah.
And why aren't you? You never will. And so it drove her to just go hard as hell, basically, and make herself into somebody that everybody would say, wow, look at that.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way. It was just, she was so driven.
No, you're proving them wrong.
And proving them wrong. And I don't think she would disagree with what I just said, although maybe she would, I don't know.
No, I think that that's pretty spot on. Like she is a dreamer at the end of the day, and she has these visions, but she also has action plans for every single dream she has. And that's important, and she follows through. And I think that, that might stem from feeling like, oh, somebody told me I can't do something and I need to do it. Right. But that's a great motivator if you take it that way, because some people might say, oh, I can't do it because that person told me I can't.
Right. So that to me is interesting, because there must have been something inside her that she was born with that was like,
oh yeah.
Because you're right. Someone could hear all that and be like, well, they're right. I actually can't be anything. I'm a loser.
Right. Yeah. Or if somebody said, there's no money in handbags, and she'd be like, okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, darn.
Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah. So then what do you see? I mean, what keeps you coming back to work for her and with her?
For me, it has a lot to do with personal growth. I am always trying to better myself. And maybe that sounds a little bit selfish, but if I I see it as a way of learning and just really bettering my business sense and my leadership skills and my personal kind of, I like to see every person as their own brand. And if you need a bunch of things to make a brand successful, right. And not all of that can come from internal. And so I really love to learn from Tammy and learn from the company and the people around me. I learn from everybody on a daily basis. So that's what really drives me.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She provides to you that opportunity to keep getting better. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I just saw something about building a personal brand, and it's like truly everybody should do that. It sounds ridiculous. I mean,
you kind of do, right? Your reputation is your brand.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing.
That's a good point. Everybody does build a brand.
Yeah.
I mean, you might be a cop or you might be a doctor or something where it's like it's not really like your public perception is not. But if you're in business or you're in as a creator or an artist, mm-hmm. you have to sell yourself, and not in a negative way. You have to impress upon the world why you are or how you're different.
Absolutely. And I might even disagree with you a little bit there, because with being a cop, for instance, if you want to be promoted within the service, you have to exude a type of persona, and your bosses have to see you as a valuable person, which at the end of the day is still your reputation and your brand. If you are somebody who just punches a clock, goes to work, comes mm-hmm. home, that's their brand.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I guess I was thinking about building a personal brand on social media specifically.
Right.
But you make a great point, and probably a better point. Maybe you should host the show. It's like people have to take ownership of what it is they're putting out in the world. And I mean, we're all guilty of being clueless of it sometimes, but you make an impression everywhere you go. You can't forget that.
Especially in these days, your personal social media is also a reflection. And if you think employers don't look at your Instagram before they hire you, you're mistaken. So, yeah. But so every single thing that you put on the internet or word of mouth, for instance, sure. I've heard people build their entire businesses off word of mouth alone. And if that word is negative, you don't have a business.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's a little now, but is there a problem in your mind? As somebody who hires people, you go trolling through their Facebook posts from 10 years ago?
No, not 10 years ago, okay. But I definitely do look into their social media.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How deeply do you, what are you looking for really?
I look for anything that could be, I guess, problematic. At the end of the day, anybody can, because we are such a small company. LinkedIn is also a great tool. And I guess LinkedIn can be considered social media as well, right? But it's really important to know who you're hiring, because even being a small company, and if somebody attaches their LinkedIn profile to your company, that person represents your company. Because everybody else can see that they work there. So if there's somebody who is, putting out horrible messaging or things that don't align with your brand per se, then that could negatively impact you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I see that now. Because Tammy talked about this concept of cash versus cost centers, but you could look at whoever you're bringing on as being like a value add or a value detractor in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And they may bring a lot of good stuff, but if they're a mouthpiece on social media, that's not helping.
Yeah. And it also depends on the position, I guess. But, I'm all for people having opinions, of course. I want, and freedom of speech.
Right.
But if it's something that's concerning that we worry that might harm our particular company, mm-hmm. then that is a concern. Mm-hmm.
So what is kind of the I guess the personality of who are the people that you're looking to bring on? What is kind of that personality?
Yeah, so, the first thing we always say is that we want people to act as if their position is their company. So, really to take ownership, feedback is number one. I think the ability to adapt is huge. Mm-hmm. We change all the time. meeting to meeting, we are doing something different, and you have to be able to roll with that.
Right.
So I usually ask questions like, when was the last time that you had a great idea that wasn't put into action? Or when was the last time that one of your bosses shut down an idea, and how did you react? Or because it's a good tell of how somebody adapts to change. Especially in leadership positions, we pitch ideas here all the time that don't necessarily pan out, or the logistics don't work out.
Sure.
And if you take that personally, it's a bit tough.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. You're putting forth, you want these people to take ownership of their position and of their role in the company, but also in some way distance themselves from it too. It's like there's this thing where it's like you want to separate yourself from an idea and be able to see the idea as the idea and you as you. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But still be able to, no, there's no bad ideas. It's just do they work well? Okay, I take that back. There might have been some.
Sure.
But we're always open ears. It's just, do the logistics work for Luxe Du Jour?
I got you. As far as somebody taking it upon themselves to contribute an idea to the business is not a bad idea. It might not work.
Absolutely not.
Right. You can't stifle that sort of creativity.
And there's been some ideas that, our executive assistants have pitched, and they've been excellent, huge, hard-hitting ideas that we've ran with. And then there's been some that, myself has pitched that have been, squashed at the table and said, absolutely no way.
Okay. Right? Squashed at the table. Yeah. That's always a good feeling, huh?
Yeah.
When they look around and go, well.
That's how it goes, right?
It has to.
And some people, they bring different life experiences to the table, and so they have different viewpoints.
For sure. And that's what you want, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You can't hire a bunch of the same people. What a nightmare that would be.
It would be a cult. It wouldn't be a company.
It would be a cult. Can you imagine? Oops, we built a cult.
Yeah, whoops.
Well, that was not the plan, but...
I take it back.
So are you in the same office building? Like you're next door to Tammy? Yeah.
Yep. She's just over there.
Okay. Well, that's a beautiful. So you guys don't have like a showroom per se. There's no need for that. It's just.
No, just because we have, we do take viewings, and people can book appointments with us to view bags.
Okay.
But because of the bags themselves and not, we don't want them handled too much and things, it doesn't make sense for us to have almost like a storefront.
Gotcha. Yeah. And these days, come on.
No, yeah, it was all online until about, a year ago. So
it's the perfect business for the day, I suppose, where there's restrictions on who we can see and where we can go.
Right.
But at least you can go in style.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, wherever you're going, you can go in style.
That's right. Do you? Yeah. Never mind. I guess I did want to touch a little bit. I did talk to Tammy, but like the content side of your marketing, and you have an in-house content person or team. It's a couple people.
We have a couple people who are in charge of content.
Okay.
We have a marketing director who is unbelievable.
Nice.
And but in terms of I saw that you're really into videography. So we work with a couple local photographers and videographers to take our content. But yeah, it's ever changing. It's on a weekly basis that we're taking new content because it's.
Well, that's the mission. Yeah. You have to be creating content pretty much hourly, daily at least. Yeah. I applaud you guys for taking on an in-house person, because as a videographer, I've done contract content creation for small businesses, and it's like, This is useless. This is helping nobody, because I don't know anything about your business beyond what you told me on the phone.
Exactly.
To have that person embedded in there who's hands on the business, who lives the business, they're the ones that create the content. It has to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it also comes down to consistency as well within a brand. Like we want, for instance, if anything was posted, we need it to be in line with our brand. Right. And so to have multiple people touching that, because everybody has their own stylistic ways. And so to have one consistent person be in charge of that is really helpful.
Yeah. Have there ever been times where the content creation sort of takes over the life of the business? Have you ever felt that?
No, I think our marketing team does such a good job with keeping us all on brand.
Okay.
And we make sure that everybody has a really clear vision of what we need.
Okay.
That no, I don't feel like it has taken over.
That's good.
Yeah.
And that's part of that is because you're all of the same team, right? Like,
oh yeah.
I just got done shooting some video for a company, and I was subcontracted by an agency. This is the agency's client, and the amount of emails and the amount of script revisions, I'm like, and people from the client, people were acting in the video. It's like, we have taken over these people's lives for this.
Right.
For this, I don't know if that's a bad thing, but it's like, I really struggle when I feel like my video and my presence in the company is a burden, because it shouldn't be.
Right.
But
yeah,
you guys, again, I think that's the solution is to just have in-house people.
Yeah, and it's also easier to give feedback as well, because there has been content that is created that maybe we need tweaks on, and to have somebody write down right across from my office to just be like, hey, can we actually say it this way, or can we take this photo at this angle? It's super helpful, instead of having to bring, say, for instance, yourself back in, schedule a whole day out, rent a studio if need be.
Nightmare.
Yeah,
I would say. But I mean, it's interesting too, because your business relies on that content, right? Like, so much. Absolutely. Because it's the whole thing is a visual thing, right? Beauty, appealing to women's sense of beauty. If you didn't need regular content, you could see why you wouldn't need a marketing team. But I just, everybody needs a marketing team these days, truly.
Oh, 100%. And marketing does so much more than just content here.
Okay.
They take over everything from advertisements to expansions to, it's really important that they have their hands on absolutely everything. Right.
That's a good point. Marketing is not just advertising. It's marketing, right?
Yeah,
like looking,
it's branding. It's
right.
It's creating an emotional attachment to the brand for everybody. Like when people see Luxe Du Jour, we want them to feel a certain way, and it's our marketing team to make sure that they do.
Shouts out to the marketing team for killing it over there.
Yeah. Oh, they are. Yeah.
Well, Jill, thanks a lot for your time and for providing some really great insight, I think, on HR, so to speak, and business, sort of internal business stuff. This was great.
Oh, awesome. Well, I hope it was interesting and not, I didn't bore you.
No, you didn't bore me at all. I'm fascinated by it. Truly. There's something about business when you realize that it is people at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely.
Like there's not, sometimes people make it a mystery, but I think the more insight I can get, the more I see it's just people interacting. It's just people. You said something really great, and it cut.
Sorry.
That's okay. You said something you were talking about Jeff Bezos going home and putting his shoes on. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I don't think he does.
No.
I think somebody puts his shoes on for him.
Yeah, well, maybe, but at the end of the day, he's still just a person.
It's true.
And so is everybody who walks in our door. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jill. I guess I'll get you to just restate. Tammy kind of did, but if I'm looking to rent a handbag, I'm not. But if I was, where would I go and how would I get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. It's www.luxebagrental.ca. You can find us on Instagram as well for Luxe Bag Rental. And you create an account, you get approved, and then you can rent. Super easy. And then you're the coolest person in the eyes of everybody at the law firm. It's great. Exactly. Yeah. No, I appreciate you putting up with me and for giving your time. This was a lot of fun and learned a lot. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for listening, folks, to the Double Header. Thank you for watching this episode of the North Bank Media Podcast. Please like and subscribe below. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at North Bank Media Podcast for highlights from past conversations and to be notified of upcoming episodes. Thank you.